What if I told you that right now, at this moment, you are only operating below 40% of your actual potential? Not 80%. Not 90%. 40%. And the terrifying part? Your brain is lying to you. It's been lying to you your entire life. Every time you felt like quitting, every time you told yourself, I can't do this anymore, every time you hit a wall and turned back, your brain was protecting you from discomfort. But here's what it was not protecting you from: the life you were actually meant to live. There is a man alive today who was born into abuse, poverty, and violence. A man who, at 24 years old, weighed 297 pounds and had failed the military entrance exam twice. A man who was told by doctors he had a congenital heart defect and had no business being an elite soldier. And that man became one of the most decorated Navy SEALs in United States history. He completed multiple Hell Weeks. He ran 100-mile races with broken bones. He shattered the world pull-up record. And he did it all with a philosophy so raw, so uncomfortable, and so undeniably true that it changed how millions of people think about pain, limits, and the human will. His name is David Goggins. And what he discovered about the human mind is something your teachers never taught you, your parents never told you, and your comfort zone has been desperately trying to hide from you. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you are going to see yourself differently. The hidden problem most people face. Let me ask you something personal. Think back to the last time you set a big goal. Maybe it was losing weight, getting a promotion, starting a business, learning a new skill, training for something that scared you. What happened? Most people start strong. The motivation is electric in the beginning, you feel unstoppable, like this time is different. But then, somewhere between day 3 and day 30, a voice shows up. A quiet, reasonable voice that whispers, "You've done enough for today. You deserve a break. Maybe this just isn't for you." And almost every time, we listen to that voice. We slow down. We rationalize. We settle. And here's the cruel trick: we don't even feel bad about it. Because the voice is so convincing. It uses our own logic against us. You worked hard this week. Your body needs rest. There's always tomorrow. This is the hidden problem. Not laziness. Not lack of talent. Not bad luck. The hidden problem is that we have been trained, by society, by comfort, by biology itself, to avoid discomfort at all costs. We live in a world that has made softness the default. And the result? Most people go to their graves never knowing what they were truly capable of. David Goggins calls this living a calloused lie. You're not living fully, you're managing. You're surviving. You're doing just enough to keep the voice quiet and the discomfort at bay. And the terrifying question he asks is, what if everything you've ever accomplished was just the beginning, not the peak of what you could do? That question haunted him. But before we get to how he answered it, you need to understand where he came from. Because if you think your life has been hard, buckle up. The author's big discovery. David Goggins did not grow up in circumstances that suggested greatness. He grew up in a household run by fear. His father was abusive, violently, systematically abusive. By the time David was a child, he had already learned that the world was a place that hurt you. He developed a stutter. He struggled with learning. His hair fell out in patches from the stress. Other kids noticed. The bullying was relentless. His mother eventually fled with him in the middle of the night. They had nothing. New city, no money, no safety net. David started school so far behind academically that he was functionally illiterate. He cheated his way through high school, copying from other students just to survive. He graduated with no real skills, no confidence, and no idea who he was. By his early 20s, he was working the night shift as a pest exterminator, overweight, miserable, with roaches crawling over his boots at 2 a.m. He was 297 pounds. He was eating badly. He was going nowhere. And then one night, sitting in front of the television, he saw a documentary about Navy SEALs. Something cracked open inside of him. He called a recruiter the next morning. But there was a problem. Actually, there were many problems. He was 100 pounds overweight. He had failed the military aptitude test twice. He had a heart defect. And the next SEAL training class was starting in just 3 months. A rational person would have said, "This isn't for me." And no one would have blamed him. But David Goggins did something that would define the rest of his life. He made a decision, not a New Year's resolution, not a vision board moment, a real decision, that he was going to change. Not because it was possible. Not because he was ready. But because the alternative, staying who he was simply no longer acceptable to him. He ran when his lungs burned. He ran when his knees swelled. He starved himself. He trained when he couldn't feel his feet. In 3 months, he lost 106 pounds and passed the SEAL entrance exam. But here's what makes this more than just a good story. What Goggins discovered during those 3 months, and in every painful experience that followed, was a truth about the human mind that most of us will never test. The moment your mind says, "Stop," you still have 60% left. He called it the 40% rule. And it changed everything. The 40% rule: your mind quits before your body does. When you feel like you've hit your limit, when every cell in your body is screaming to stop, you are actually only at 40% of your true capacity. That's not poetry. That's a fact about human physiology and psychology. Our brains are wired for survival, not peak performance. The moment discomfort reaches a certain level, your brain sends a very convincing signal to shut down. It's trying to protect you. But it's also robbing you. Think about the last time you exercised and felt like you couldn't do one more rep, then someone you respected walked in and you somehow found 3 more sets. Where did that come from? It didn't come from your muscles, they hadn't changed. It came from a reserve your brain had been hoarding. Goggins realized this during Hell Week, the legendary 5-day torture test for SEAL candidates. He was broken. His feet were bloody pulps. He was hypothermic. He hallucinated. And his brain was screaming stop. But he didn't stop, and when he pushed past that wall, he discovered something extraordinary: there was more. There was always more. The 40% rule isn't about being reckless. It's about recognizing that your limits are mostly mental, not physical. The ceiling you believe is real, is a suggestion. Your brain is a governor, not a GPS. It limits you before you've actually reached your limit. Think of a marathon runner who hits the wall at mile 18. That's the 40% signal. The runners who finish do so not because they're more physically gifted, but because they've trained themselves to ignore that signal and keep moving. The next time you're working out, studying, or doing something hard and your brain says, "Done," do 10 more. 10 more reps, 10 more minutes. 10 more pages. You are training your brain to expand its concept of your ceiling. Do this every single day and watch what happens to you in 6 months. Callusing your mind. Goggins talks about calluses, the thick, hardened skin that forms on a laborer's hands after years of work. It doesn't happen because of one day of shoveling. It builds over time, through repeated friction. And it makes what was once painful routine. Your mind works the same way. Most of us avoid discomfort. We take the elevator instead of the stairs. We skip the cold shower. We order delivery instead of cooking. We say yes to social media instead of our goals. Every time we choose the easy path, our mind gets softer. And a soft mind quits faster. But every time you choose the hard path, voluntarily, your mind gets calloused. The friction that once felt unbearable starts to feel manageable. Then almost normal. Then almost easy. This is how Goggins trained himself to run 100-mile races. Not in one heroic moment, but through thousands of small, deliberate choices to embrace discomfort before it was necessary. He calls this voluntary suffering. Not pain for pain's sake, but purposeful exposure to hard things, so that when hard things come uninvited, you are not destroyed by them. Mental toughness is not a personality trait you're born with. It's a skill you build through repeated exposure to voluntary discomfort. Think about how children learn to swim. The first time in the water, they panic. But after enough exposures, enough voluntary confrontations with the fear, it becomes natural. The fear doesn't disappear, it becomes manageable. You override it. Pick one thing in your daily life you've been avoiding because it's uncomfortable. The difficult conversation. The early morning run. The cold shower. The hard chapter. Commit to doing it every day for 30 days. You're not trying to enjoy it. You're trying to callous your mind against it. The accountability mirror. Here's one that might sting a little. Stay with me. Early in his transformation, Goggins did something brutally simple. He taped pieces of paper to his bathroom mirror. On each piece of paper, he wrote the truth about himself, not affirmations, not "you're amazing," not motivational quotes. The truth. You are 297 pounds. You failed the test twice. You're afraid. You've been lying to yourself. He called it the accountability mirror. And every morning, he had to look himself in the eye and face those truths before he could start his day. Here's why this matters: most people live in a fog of self-deception. We know our problems, but we soften them. I'm a little out of shape. I've been kind of busy. I'll get to it eventually. We use language to make our failures feel acceptable. And as long as they feel acceptable, we never truly fight them. The accountability mirror forces you to strip away that language. No euphemisms. No excuses. Just the facts. And this is critical: it's not about shame. Goggins is clear about this. He wasn't using the mirror to beat himself up. He was using it as a data source. This is where I am. Now what am I going to do about it? Because when you see your truth clearly, two things happen. First, the shame loses its power, it can't hide in the shadows anymore. Second, you are forced to make a real decision. You can't wander forward if you know exactly where you stand. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. Radical honesty about your current reality is the first step of every real transformation. Think about a company that ignores bad financial data to avoid uncomfortable board meetings. That avoidance doesn't make the debt disappear, it makes it worse. The companies that survive are the ones who look at the numbers clearly, then act. Same principle applies to your life. The cookie jar. Now here's a tool that is going to change how you handle your worst moments. Goggins calls it the cookie jar. Here's the concept: every hard thing you've ever survived, every obstacle you've overcome, every time you kept going when you wanted to stop, those are cookies. And you keep them in a mental jar. When you're in a dark moment, when the voice says stop, when you don't think you have anything left, you reach into the jar. You pull out a cookie. And you remind yourself, I've been here before. And I made it through. This is not toxic positivity. It's not pretending things are fine when they're not. It's something far more powerful: it's evidence. Evidence, from your own life, that you are more capable than this moment is making you feel. During one of his ultramarathons, the Badwater 135, one of the most brutal races on Earth, run through Death Valley in 120-degree heat, Goggins hit a wall so severe that he could barely walk. And he reached into his jar. He thought about Hell Week. He thought about losing 100 pounds. He thought about every single time people told him he couldn't and he proved them wrong. And he kept moving. The cookie jar works because memory is an emotion. When you vividly recall a past victory, your nervous system responds. Your chemistry changes. Your posture shifts. You move differently. And suddenly, the impossible feels slightly less impossible. Your past victories are not behind you. They are with you, available to be drawn on in every future battle. Right now, before you do anything else, write down your top 5 cookies. 5 times in your life you did something hard. Big or small, doesn't matter. Keep this list somewhere accessible. The next time you hit a wall, read it. Then take one more step. Taking souls, turning pain into power. This one is electric. Goggins developed a technique in the military he calls taking souls. And it sounds more dramatic than it is, but barely. Here's the idea: when someone is trying to break you, when the environment is trying to crush you, when pain or adversity is trying to make you quit, instead of shrinking, you turn it into fuel. You use it to outperform everyone watching. Not to prove anything to them. To prove something to yourself. During Hell Week, the instructors were designed to break candidates. The cold, the sleep deprivation, the mud, it was engineered suffering. Most candidates broke. But Goggins did something different. Every time they tried to break him, he moved faster. He worked harder. He smiled. Not because he wasn't hurting, he was destroyed, but because he had decided that this environment, this pain, this pressure was his superpower, not his enemy. This is something elite athletes understand intuitively. The biggest stages don't reveal weakness, they amplify whatever is already there. If you've trained in pressure, you perform in pressure. If you've always run from pain, pain will always stop you. The real transformation happens when you stop seeing hard things as things that are happening to you and start seeing them as things that are happening for you. Every rejection that sharpened your pitch. Every failure that revealed a flaw in your plan. Every painful relationship that taught you what you actually need. Goggins calls this taking souls because you are refusing to let adversity take yours. Adversity doesn't determine your outcome. Your response to adversity determines your outcome. Think about J.K. Rowling, rejected by 12 publishers, a single mother on welfare. She didn't shrink. She kept writing. Every rejection became evidence that the book mattered enough to fight for. She took the soul of doubt and turned it into fuel. The result, one of the most successful book series in human history. So, think of one adversity you are currently facing, one enemy in your life right now. Write down 3 ways that enemy could be making you stronger. What is it forcing you to develop? What would you never learn without it? Reframe it in writing. This rewires how your brain categorizes the experience. Visualizing your way through darkness. Goggins is not a romantic. He doesn't talk much about manifestation or visualization in the way Instagram self-help does. But he does use mental rehearsal in a very specific, tactical way. Before any extreme challenge, before a race, before Hell Week, before a record attempt, he would sit in silence and mentally run through every painful moment that was coming. Not to scare himself. To prepare himself. He would feel the cold water before he hit it. He would feel the muscle cramps at mile 80. He would feel the urge to quit at 3 a.m. And then, while he was still warm and safe and dry, he would practice staying in the fight. This is different from positive visualization. Most people visualize only the finish line. Goggins visualizes the middle, the ugly, brutal, lonely middle, where most people quit. Because if you've already been there in your mind, you are less likely to be surprised by it in reality. Elite military units use this technique. Surgeons use it. Professional athletes use it. They mentally rehearse not the best-case scenario, but the crisis scenarios. So when crisis arrives, their brain recognizes it. I've been here before. I know what to do. Don't visualize only the outcome. Visualize the obstacles between here and the outcome, and rehearse getting through them. A pilot who has done thousands of hours of emergency simulations in a flight simulator doesn't panic during a real emergency. They've already lived it mentally, hundreds of times. The simulation didn't make them fearless, it made them ready. Before your next big challenge, spend 10 minutes in silence. Close your eyes. Walk through the hardest moments you expect to face. Feel the resistance. Then, in your mind, watch yourself push through it anyway. Do this 3 times before the challenge arrives. You are installing a mental map for the dark moments. The uncommon among the uncommon. This is perhaps the most quietly radical idea in the entire book. Most people, when they achieve something difficult, they stop, they celebrate, they rest on it. They let it define them, and there's nothing wrong with that, unless it becomes a ceiling. Goggins refuses to let accomplishments become comfort zones. He says, you don't stop when you're tired. You stop when you're done. But the bigger idea is this: he is always redefining what done means. Just when he has achieved something most people would retire on, becoming a Navy SEAL, completing Hell Week 3 times, running ultramarathons, he looks for the next evolution. The next harder thing. The next frontier of himself that hasn't been explored yet. He calls this becoming uncommon among the uncommon. In a world where most people are average, reaching above average is considered exceptional. But Goggins isn't interested in being exceptional among ordinary people. He wants to be exceptional among exceptional people. He wants to be the one who didn't stop when everyone else already stopped. This is not about ego. It's about the pursuit of potential as a purpose. For Goggins, the worst possible outcome is dying with potential still locked inside him, knowing he could have gone further and chose not to. And the question he poses, which stays with you long after you close the book, is this: what would you become if you refused to stop at good enough? Achievement is a milestone, not a destination. The pursuit of your full potential is a lifelong practice, not a one-time event. Roger Federer didn't stop competing after his first Grand Slam. Michael Jordan didn't retire after his first championship ring. Warren Buffett didn't stop investing after his first billion. The people who achieve legendary status are not the ones who got there, they're the ones who refused to let there be the end of the story. So write down your biggest accomplishment in the last year. Now ask yourself, what would the next level of that look like? What would it require? What's the harder version of what you've already done? You don't have to pursue it today. But name it. Name it and let it sit in the back of your mind like a challenge. That's how great goals are born. How these lessons change a person's life. I want to pause here for a moment, because I think it's easy to hear all of this and think, that's extreme. That's for SEALs and ultramarathon runners. Not for me. I hear that. And I want to challenge it. You don't have to run 100 miles in the desert. You don't have to sign up for military training. You don't have to become David Goggins. But here's what you can take from every one of these lessons. The 40% rule means that the presentation you're terrified to give, the business you're afraid to start, the relationship you're scared to repair, you have more in you than you think. More courage. More resilience. More capacity for hard conversations and harder decisions. Callusing your mind means that every time you choose the hard thing, every morning alarm you actually obey, every difficult email you actually send, every uncomfortable truth you actually face, you are getting stronger in ways you cannot yet see. The accountability mirror means that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not a source of shame. It's a map. The clearer you see it, the more powerfully you can navigate it. The cookie jar means that you are not starting from zero. You never were. You are the sum of every obstacle you've ever overcome. And that sum is more formidable than you've been giving yourself credit for. Taking souls means that the thing currently trying to break you might be the thing that ultimately defines you, if you let it fuel you instead of stop you. Mental rehearsal means that you can prepare for the hard parts without experiencing them first, and walk into your biggest challenges with a mental map already drawn. And becoming uncommon among the uncommon means asking, for the first time or the 100th time, the question that only people who are serious about their lives ask: what am I actually capable of? These lessons don't change your circumstances overnight. But they change the framework through which you engage with your circumstances. And when that framework changes, everything else eventually follows. Practical action plan. Let's make this real. Here is your 7-step action plan, one for each lesson. Step 1. Expand the 40% rule. The next time you hit your perceived limit in anything, exercise, work, study, do 10 more. 10 more minutes. 10 more reps, 10 more attempts. Do this daily. It's not a big change. It's a practice. Over 90 days, your ceiling will move. Step 2. Build one callus per week. Pick one uncomfortable habit to start this week. Cold showers. Early mornings. A daily walk in the rain. An hour of deep work without your phone. Do it every day for 7 days. Next week, add another. You are building a new nervous system response to discomfort. Step 3. Create your accountability mirror. Tonight, write 5 uncomfortable truths about where your life currently stands. Tape them to your mirror. Read them every morning out loud before you leave the bathroom. Not to punish yourself. To stay oriented to reality. Step 4. Fill your cookie jar. Write your top 10 hardest moments you survived. Keep this list in your journal, your notes app, or your wallet. The next time you face a hard moment, read it before you decide to quit. Step 5. Find your soul to take. Identify your current biggest adversity or obstacle. Write down 3 ways it could be making you stronger. Then choose to face it with 10% more aggression this week than you did last week. Step 6. Rehearse the hard parts. Before your next big challenge, spend 10 minutes visualizing the worst moments within it, then rehearsing, mentally, pushing through them. Do this 3 times before the event. You are installing a mental override switch. Step 7. Define your next level. Write down your biggest recent accomplishment. Then write down the harder version of it. The next evolution. You don't have to go there today. But name it, date it, and let it live in your mind as a destination. Do these 7 things, even imperfectly, for the next 90 days. And I promise you will not recognize yourself. Let's conclude it. There's a moment in the book that I keep coming back to. Goggins is in the water during Hell Week. It's the middle of the night. It's freezing. His body is failing. His mind is begging him to raise his hand, the signal that means, I quit. And he asks himself a question. What am I worth? Not to anyone else. Not to the instructors. Not to prove something to the people who doubted him. To himself. That question is the heart of this entire book. And I think it's a question most of us are afraid to ask, because we're afraid of the answer. We're afraid that if we really tested ourselves, we might discover we're not as capable as we hoped. So we never test ourselves at all. We stay in the safe zone. We manage expectations, including our own. But here's what Goggins discovered, and what I hope you take with you from this video: the answer to that question is almost always more than you think. More resilience than you've shown. More courage than you've demonstrated. More capacity for change, for growth, for hard work, for love, for discipline, for transformation than you have ever actually deployed. The 40% rule isn't just a number. It's a philosophy. It's a statement about the gap between who you are and who you could be, and the reality that only you get to decide how much of that gap you close. David Goggins grew up with nothing. He overcame everything. And he did it not because he was special, he would be the first to tell you that. He did it because he decided. And decisions, unlike talent, are available to everyone. So here's my question for you: the one I want you to sit with, not just today, but every morning when you look in the mirror. What would your life look like if you stopped living at 40%? Because the life you're capable of is waiting. It's not somewhere else. It's not for someone else. It's on the other side of the next hard thing you've been avoiding. Go get it. If this summarized audiobook moved you and added value, subscribe the channel and like the video. And if you want to go deeper, pick up David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. This summary gave you the map. The book gives you the journey. See you in the next one.